Hello, you're watching Smart Money. I'm Alishia Seckam. Well, AnBro portfolios are now available on Mesh, a decentralized, multi-sided cross-asset marketplace that gives all participants direct access to the financial markets. And joining me now with more of the detail on what exactly we're looking at here and what's on offer to those looking for access to those points are Connie Bloem, who's MD and co-founder of Mesh Trade, and Craig Antonie, who's CIO of AnBro as well. So welcome to you both, and thanks so much for joining us today. Connie, straight to the point. What was the appeal? Why the decision to launch 3 AnBro portfolios on Mesh Trade?
Well, from a Mesh perspective, you know that we're always looking for quality, dynamic entrepreneurs to partner with and do interesting things together. So when we stumbled upon AnBro and were introduced to Justin and Craig, we could not but list their assets. They are incredibly managed portfolios. They're incredibly managed, dynamic team. And we knew that when we saw these assets that more people needed to have access to them because they create like a whole portfolio in themselves. And as you will learn today from Craig, it is fantastic to see how involved they are in the everyday management of these assets. And it's extremely unique that you get a collaboration of a team that is so passionate about the things that they do. It's just like, it's the most fun to listen to them speak about it on a daily basis.
And of course, Craig, I mean, that to a degree speaking to your market differentiation, right? But spell it out for us. How do you approach the investment industry differently as you see it?
Well, hi, Alishia. Thanks for having us. Lovely to be here. AnBro is a boutique asset management business. And, we've been around now for just over 10 years. And, what we've tried to do is manage portfolios for a wide range of customers and investors, whether it be the retirement space or just more conventional vanilla type portfolios, but with a focus on offshore assets and offshore investments. And what we try to do is offer portfolios to investors that we genuinely believe are unique and different. We like to think that clients that invest with us are getting access to portfolios that they aren't likely to find easily elsewhere. And I'm sure, most investors are aware of, there's a chap by the name of Warren Buffett, and he prefers to invest in companies that have strong competitive advantages or what he likes to refer to as a moat. Well, we look to do the same thing, but in a way which provides equity exposure across the spectrum from large and predictable companies all the way to up-and-coming disruptive businesses which are just taking off and sort of shaking up markets and industries. And the aim really at the end of the day is to offer all these investments in a way which provide clients also with a hedge against imported inflation and a real sort of hard asset portfolio which can deliver, great returns over the long run.
And Craig, we'll be getting into what exactly you're putting on the table in just a bit. Before we do, Connie, I mean, as you said right at the top, right, it's AnBro's hands-on approach that what makes it particularly attractive as a fund manager. How have you seen investors derive benefit from that kind of approach?
The AnBro assets are what we like to call a game changer. They are inflation busting. They provide South African investors with global access and access to companies and portfolios that wouldn't necessarily get access to. And especially if you start digging into the portfolios, especially the brands and the unicorn one. One of my favorite stories about these 2 assets when I spoke to Justin at the start is that some of them have 80 assets in it that you wouldn't actually even be able to buy locally. So how cool is that to gain a portfolio that gives you such abundant access to the global market? With the Rand doing interesting things all the time, it's so important to have that Rand hedge and have a dynamic portfolio that reacts to it in real time as well.
Yeah, so Craig, Connie giving us there a bit of a teaser. Let's shift focus then from approach to actual product, right? And we're going to be homing in on your unicorn global equity AMC first. On the one end, what's the target market? On the other end, what types of companies do you invest in within that portfolio specifically?
Sure. So this portfolio is suited for investors that are looking for blue sky returns, blue sky potential. And it really is a portfolio that aims for maximum upside. So it's suited to investors that have a more aggressive and sort of investment tolerance, but importantly also investors that aren't afraid of a little bit of market volatility. Portfolio can move up and down as markets move up and down, but what we've seen over the long run is the returns tend to be pretty spectacular. So the companies we invest in here are literally businesses that are trying to change the world. They're either reshaping existing industries or inventing new ones. And while they're doing this, they're growing rapidly. And one way that we try and identify portfolios or other companies that fit into this portfolio are looking for businesses that are solving headache-level problems for their customers and for their clients. With the premise being that, if you're able to provide a real solution to someone who's suffering from a significant problem, you're more likely to have a client for life than not. And in most cases, these businesses were also started by people that were suffering from the very same problems that they're now trying to solve. So, inadvertently, what you have here now is a founder who's passionate about the product, passionate about the business, has a large equity stake in the company, and manages the business with a long-term mindset, really taking the best possible, decisions they can to deliver on the vision that they see for this business. Now, our research has shown that, if you invested in companies that have big founder participation, big founder stakes, and founder involvement, we've actually delivered, fantastic returns. And we have 4 clients at the time. And if you look at it in the South African context briefly, you can imagine some companies like, say, Shoprite, FirstRand, Discovery, Rembro, Richemont, Aspen. These are all companies that were founded by, really exceptional people and have delivered fantastic returns. And what we try and do really is replicate this on a global context and say, what is the next Berkshire Hathaway? What is the next Tesla or Netflix or Amazon? And we try to make sure that we can jump on these companies early on in their life story and then go with it as they mature and scale up.
Okay, and I'm doing no justice to these portfolios here because I'm just blitzing through the 3 portfolios that you do have on offer. There's the world's biggest brand, ANC, as well. And what's interesting here is that you invest, Craig, in brands rather than simply picking the 100 companies with the highest market cap, right? So talk us through that rationale and the universe of opportunity that presents itself there.
Sure. Well, the idea for this portfolio was born out of one of the mega trends that we tracked and followed and that is consumption. We as people consume things, and the companies that provide the things that we consume are likely to have regular and repeatable clients and purchases as a result of this. Now, I'm sure you can imagine that every company out there that sells a product would like to sell that product more than once, right? They want to sell it over and over again. And that repeatability in itself creates line of sight, it creates cash flows, it creates confidence and trust amongst consumers. And when you put all of this together, you get a really fierce customer loyalty, which in itself is a really big competitive advantage, or as Warren Buffett says, a moat. And one way to identify this in my view is looking at the thousands of different brands out there in the world and then filtering them for these sorts of characteristics. And this is a pretty awesome portfolio, you should, because it's got many layers to it. Some brands are necessity-based, others are aspirational. Some are unique to countries that investors might not necessarily have big exposure to anyway, but are still massive in the context of where they are. And in this portfolio, you really have a very diverse range of assets across the globe. And it covers emerging markets, first world markets, wide swathe of different geographies in that as well. And, in most cases, people would just, easily identify with what we're investing in by just simply looking around them on a daily basis. Whether it be the phone you use, the sneakers you wear, the soft drinks you like to drink, the movies your kids like to watch, the car you drive or car you'd love to drive one day, etc. And this makes this portfolio very easy and understandable for investors.
Absolutely. And just how prominent those brands are in everyday life, right? Just how apparent they are, how frequently you see them out there, because that speaks to the market demand that they're actually catering to. Craig, finally, you've got the dynamic compound portfolio. So what are we looking at there, and what type of investor does that benefit?
So, well, as I alluded to earlier, each portfolio we have has a specific competitive advantage and moat, and the same applies to this portfolio. The difference here, though, is that we're looking for companies that are more conservative, that are very consistent, they have a great long-term track record on delivering returns, and on top of this, pay very nice, attractive dividends to their customers. So, these dividends are then being collected on a daily basis, literally, and then we reinvest those dividends. So much like compound interest, if you think about it, you have a rising share price with cash flow. We then take that cash flow and reinvest it back into the portfolio. And the combination of rising share prices and ever-rising cash flows creates this compounding monster over time.
Yeah.
Also, we typically look here for companies that own physical assets. So if you think of things like property or infrastructure assets, those types of businesses. The types of businesses that generate significant cash flows just because of the business model that they're using, like an insurance company, or also companies that have toll booth-like business models. So if you think of things like utilities, where we need to pay our utility bills every month. If you think of hospitals, people go in on a pretty regular basis. It's those sort of portfolios. And what we find is, it tends to suit investors that are more conservative in nature, that are looking for regular cash flows, and who, like me, hopefully one day would like to, replace that salary with a dividend stream, and then, you can just live off your dividends and it can supplement your lifestyle at the time.
Connie, so that's what we have on offer. How does Mesh Trade make it accessible, in fact, more accessible and easy for South Africans to invest in these funds?
So at Mesh, we believe in opening up the capital markets, making it accessible both for like your retail clients, but all the way through to your professional investors as well. And these portfolios do tend to cater for a broad spectrum of investors. So when we look at the retail investors, there's very few retail investors that can actually afford to access some of these portfolios. So we make sure that these portfolios are accessible on our platform, but also fractionally available. So you can buy it with 100 Rand, 200 Rand, 1,000 Rand, and you can buy a piece of these portfolios. But they're also incredibly well positioned for the professional investors as well. We ensure that these assets trade at near to market prices as well to make sure that they're competitive, that the professional investors can actually come in and then buy it in bulk, but also serve their end clients. And here I'm talking to the wealth managers and the independent financial advisors. Mesh is also open to these clients and their clients as well. And we look at how we can enhance these funds further by making it more transparent. So we're transparent about the prices on platform that you can buy it near exchange as well. And making sure that the ownership thereof is easily traceable because we're also a regulated entity.
And of course, a nice cog helping turn the wheels of growth for Mesh, right? Any other plans in the pipeline that you're expecting to fuel Mesh Trade's growth even further?
Absolutely. You always know that I have a couple of plans available because we're always looking for alternative assets that clients cannot find anywhere else. We're looking at a gold streaming company coming through early next year for us, but also a very, very interesting financial technology fund that only invests into African and South African fintech companies. So this is something that I'm extremely, extremely passionate about and something that we're very excited about bringing onto platform. And what we hope to start stimulating with this is what I just mentioned, the professional investors, the financial advisors, the wealth managers. We're opening up capital markets to them as well to make it easier for them to trade, and especially looking after that alternative investment class. We want more of these assets that actually grow the South African economy to come into the markets and make sure that everyone can invest in these exciting opportunities.
Well, Connie, Craig, thanks so much for having joined us on Smart Money today and for sharing those insights with us. Connie Bloem is MD and co-founder of Mesh Trade, and Craig Antonie is CIO of AnBro.